And good morning, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name's Tim Backhurst, and I'm joined with a special guest this morning, Coach Jennifer Hyde, who is the head coach of women's tennis as part of the FSU Seminoles. Jen, thanks so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, just explain a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to kind of finish out your week of interviews this week. So thanks for including me on this.
Of course.
My career, it's been crazy. Funny enough, started off at Florida State as a student athlete here. Played tennis here back in the early '90s. I had kind of a dream come true back in the day, and then from there, I had a couple assistant coaches positions. I've been in the Big Ten. I've been in the Conference USA. I've been in the ACC, the SEC. Was at Alabama. Was at UNC, and then moved around for a couple assistant positions. Had my first head coaching job at University of Houston in Texas just before taking this job here in 2004 at Florida State. Kind of coming back to your alma mater as a head coach is probably one of the coolest things possible, and I'm very blessed to be back here.
Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about moving around. You moved around a lot. What was that like, and how did you deal with that constant, we're moving from here to here to here to here?
Yeah, I think when I first got out of college, our assistant coach at the time here at Florida State got a head coaching job at Iowa. So it seemed like a natural progression for me to head up there. She asked me if I wanted to be her assistant for a couple years. So I went up to Iowa. I spent 2 years there, and I actually will never forget. It was like February 6th, 1997, and it was 38 degrees below zero in Iowa. And I'm a Georgia girl. I'm from Georgia. I like the South, and I told the coach at the time that I had to get back south, and I couldn't go much north of Tennessee without being really uncomfortable. And then that was one of the reasons I moved to Alabama from there. And then I realized I needed to work with somebody else and get, a different head coach experience with another mentor. And that's when I went to UNC. And that kind of set me up to take on my own program at Houston. And I felt a little more prepared. I felt like my resume was built pretty well. I was comfortable knowing I needed to take off and I needed to, have some new experiences and not feel like I need to settle down too soon. I knew my time was going to come. And honestly, I got to work with a lot of really good people. And I think that kind of shaped me and the professional I've become and still becoming and having those opportunities to be in a lot of different places.
And we should mention, if you're watching and you have questions, feel free to put them in your chat box and we'll get them across. You talked moving from assistant to coach. How was that transition? What were some of the challenges you experienced doing that?
In all honesty, I think, I probably failed more times than I ever thought I was going to do. I was 25, 26 at that time. And, you go into it when you're younger and you think you know everything and it's my way or the highway. And you go in there just, pushing it. And sometimes you get in your own way. And I definitely did that in my first couple of years at the University of Houston and made some really good mistakes and learned along the way, which I think is the most important part. Always is continuing to grow as a coach. But it was really good for me in that it set me up to where I am now. And I got to be able to go, okay, hang on a minute, sweetheart, you don't know everything and you got a long way to go. And I think as a coach, when you kind of come to terms with the fact that, what do they say? You don't know what you don't know. And once you start learning the fact that you don't know a lot and you got to continue to grow, I think that's when you really start to tap into your talents and tap into, finding your philosophy and defining the coach that you want to be. But it's, I think, going through those hardships and those failures where you really start to think about that clearly.
Sure. So can I ask you what your philosophy is? You mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's encompassing. I think one of the things that's really important to me is trying to be very fair and be very consistent and being very honest. I think sometimes it gets me in a little bit of trouble because I think I'm maybe a little bit too direct or a little bit too honest, but I don't know how to be any other way. And I don't like to, I don't like to pretend. I want to make sure people will get the information that they deserve to get, whether, they like to hear it or not. And I kind of like the same thing in return, even if it's from my players or they're like, hey, I don't want you coming on my court today. I need the other coach. Or I just don't want to be left alone. It's like, great, that's good information. So I think, being fair, being honest, I think in the recruiting process, for us, it's very important that we have, solid student athletes. I think one of the things that we're most proud of at FSU is we continue to have the highest team GPA on campus year in and year out. We've missed it a couple of years, been going at it with golf pretty heavily in the last couple of years, but That's another thing that I'm finding with these recruits. Yeah, we're recruiting kids who have aspirations to play professionally after they finish college, and that's one of the necessities is not using this as just your next, but your platform to the next level. Not because you're supposed to come and finding that good balance of a student athlete is really important, because if they're thriving in the classroom, they're going to thrive in the court. They're going to thrive in a team, and they have that good balance. I think it's really important for them to have.
Talk a little bit about recruiting. You're obviously looking for talented athletes, right? You talked about going professional, hopefully, maybe after their college career, but then you're also talking about academics. And so that's a select group of athletes, those who are highly successful in the classroom and on the court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have high achievers, a lot of OCT, high achieving type of mentalities and personalities, which, I think the elite tend to bring that to the table, and they're fun, they're stubborn. I have no problem with that. I think, and another thing that I love about this group in particular, and groups we've had in the past, is they love the sport. They love to compete. They love the dirty work. And in college, you get in that setting, you can't lie. You can't hide behind anything. If you don't love what you're doing, it seeps out, and it's very noticeable. And
Mhm.
to mention, what we do is at such a high level that you can't hide from it, and it's eventually going to show itself. And that's the great thing we've been able to do over the years is, these kids, like I said, they want to propel to the next level, and they love it. They have like this raw passion for the sport and for competing. And as long as you're in a group like that, the sky really is the limit.
Mhm. Well, we got our first question of the day. It comes from Lance, who says, "Who's been the most impactful coach in your tennis career and why?"
Mm, I would say I've got two in particular. One of them was the head coach here when I came in as a freshman, Patty Henderson. She lives up in Canada. She might be watching right now. She gave me the opportunity to come to Florida State when I was a multi-sport athlete coming out of high school. I hadn't really achieved great levels of success as a player to that point. I was, kind of in and out, but I wasn't focusing on one sport. And she saw something in me and gave me an opportunity. And then she was here for my freshman year, and then she took off after that to go work with Tennis Canada 1 year later. So I came for a year, and I guess I chased her off. And and then the very next year, Alice Reen came in. She came in. She had worked and played at University of Georgia. She was at Arkansas as a head coach. And those two women could not have been any different. Patty was a much more laid back approach. Alice was not. Alice was very much in your face. And I think in the end, I'm grateful for them both for so many different reasons. I needed them both, and they were able to be mentors for me and give me opportunities and push me and really, really push me to figure out what it is I wanted, and if I was willing to sacrifice the things that needed to be sacrificed. And they've been, pivotal in my career, and the fact that they both have helped set me and set my life on track to where it is now. And I mean, abundantly grateful for both of those guys.
Mm. And I want to come back to multi-sport athletes. I think that's an interesting topic. But talk again about recruiting, because you were recruited. How do you recruit an athlete if you're trying to get somebody to come to FSU as opposed to, the University of Georgia or somebody? What strategies do you provide or give or encourage a student to persuade them that they need to come and train with you and come to FSU?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first and foremost is just the resources we have available at FSU are insane.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much to offer. We have so much to set people up for success from the academic standpoint, from the training standpoint, from mental health standpoint, everything. Everything is kind of perfectly wrapped in a nice box. I think the thing that's the difference maker is the relationships that you've got through the recruiting process with prospects. I think we all have nice facilities, we all have good budgets, we all have a lot of those things that you need. But I think filling out their character, and if they're going to be a fit in the program, and the relationship along the way is critical, because at the end of the day, our responsibility is to figure out what makes each of them tick, and that only comes through building time, or relationships through time. And so for us, I feel like that's been one of the things that's the most rewarding part of it. Also, it's the most heartbreaking thing when they maybe choose to go someplace else, but that's the name of the game. And no harm, no foul, and you move on to the next. But I think that's a big difference maker. And I think the people at Florida State, for example, have been a big reason why we've had so much success from the administrative level down and down into the trenches. And I think that's probably our biggest selling pull is the people. Yeah. I hear a lot about that in recruiting processes, but I really feel like we back it up here 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Go back to the fact that you were a multi-sport athlete. I find that interesting. And there's a lot of talk about sport specialization and, starting kids young and making sure that they're ready for college because they've done all this training in a specific sport. That wasn't you. Do you look for athletes who maybe haven't specialized in tennis all the way through?
It's very rare at this level to find kids who haven't specialized. I think it's a big rarity, and I actually get a little excited when I have an email come through or I get to know a kid and I realize, they ran track or play lacrosse or play hockey or basketball or something where, they've got a different set of, muscle memory skills and they're able to do a lot of different things. I might be a little biased in that because I was one of those people who maybe
Sure.
underachieved up until I got to college and gave myself a couple years to figure some things out. But I always get very excited when I see those, that kind of layering and dimension in an athlete where it's not just one set, but at the same time, at the level where we're competing and the types of players we're bringing in, they tend to be very, very specialized. I think it's a cherry on top if you've got someone who can actually be developed to that point and also do a different sport, besides the tennis right now.
Going back to your assistant coaches, you obviously have a group who work with you. What kind of person do you look for to join your team and make your whole program better?
Yeah. I mean, I have been abundantly blessed for so many years to actually do a good job of surrounding myself by better people than myself. I think I've had some assistant coaches over the years, starting my first 8 years here with a guy named Oliver Foreman. We had a great run of 7-8 years and brought this program from 72 in the country to, top 15. Susie Fodor, Georgie Pazan, Jaime, Mate. We've had so many, and now Mark. We've had so many great coaches, great minds. And I think one of the things that's been really, really good is I've been able to surround myself with people that don't think like me, which isn't hard to do. And they they have a different lens, and I'm always about angles and looking at different angles of solutions, or whether it's something tactical on court. I want someone to challenge me, whoever I'm working with, to think about things differently, because I have no problem with it. Because sometimes I know I don't have the answers, and so I've been able to have a good trusting relationships with our staff along the way. That we've had that back and forth, and we've been able to really grow. And there's been challenges along the way, and I know sometimes I'm probably not the easiest person in the world to work with, but I'm very open. I want to continue to learn too, and that's the great thing is there's so many great professionals and young professionals and maybe not so young professionals that are doing an unbelievable job of making programs better and making players better. And I've been very fortunate to be able to surround myself with so many of those along the way.
We have another question from Patty Henderson, who's stealing my questions, by the way. Come on, Patty. Thanks, Jen. It's wonderful to see your progress and maturity, not to mention the heights you've taken FSU tennis. What would be your advice to coaches of different places in their career, being an aspiring coach to the 5-year vet and to now yourself? How do you keep yourself most motivated in your coaching?
Thanks, Sandra. Good question. I think for myself, staying motivated is it's the kids, it's the team. I think that if I'm being completely honest, them thriving and them pushing themselves and them being so into being Florida State Seminoles and wanting to win championships and put themselves in contention, it lights me up. I'm not going to lie. And I think in the recruiting process, we've done a really good job of being able to filter the people that maybe bring that little extra something, that X factor, I guess, would be kind of a term you could use on it. And
can I ask how you find that X factor?
Yeah, I think it's through seeing them compete time and time again. I think it's through the conversations you have about their goals. I remember one kid on our team right now, and I don't know if she's watching, but this is kind of a funny story. I was watching her play over in Wimbledon this summer and last summer, and she was playing just fierce match against a girl who was the number 2 player in the world and junior player in the world. And she ended up beating her. And I said to her after the match, and she's just finishing her freshman year now, I said, what I love about you is you're out there competing. You've got a smile on your face, but stuck in your little tennis underwear is this knife. And you're just ready to cut whoever you're playing on the other side of the court. So it's this love of what she's doing, love of competing that you get to see, followed by I am going to cut you, and I know that sounds a little bit silly, but you have to have that ferocious type of mentality to get it done in this league and to get it done with college tennis, because the level is unbelievably high. So those are the things that keep me voted, the excitement of seeing them being able to get through situations. And that is so much fun, and just teaching them and seeing them implement things that we talk about during the week on the weekends in competition. That's what fires us up, that developmental piece. And that's one of the things that definitely keeps me motivated. And as far as a youngster, a young vet in coaching, you have to identify that yourself. I think maybe 15 years ago, what motivated me was very different. I think these kids motivate me, and the motivation to win a championship is what keeps me going. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, I didn't necessarily think that was possible, or that wasn't on my radar like it needed to be. So that's going to be defined by each individual. You just have to kind of figure that out.
Mm. Steve, who's a student in our certificate program, said, did the move of the Olympics and canceling of the current tournaments change anything that you were planning on doing with your players?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, the Olympics didn't necessarily affect it. I just think all of the other changes that are occurring with the schedule, absolutely. Yeah, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. We can't really do a whole lot. Of planning. You're not sure how the fall semester is even going to look. The Olympics itself has no play into it really, because those are all going to be the Serena Williams and the Venus Williams playing for the Olympic teams. But I think the overall scheduling changes that have had to be made, they're still up in the air. We've got 2 or 3 different ideas in mind right now of what it could look like, and we're planning for. But every day things are changing right now, so we're really not able to have anything set in stone to this point.
So how are you, let's talk a little bit about coronavirus and the fact that, many of us are working from home and not able to interact with our athletes and so on. How are you using this time with your athletes to make sure that when we do get to come back, they're better than when they went away?
Yeah, I think one of the things that my staff and I have talked about is we're trying to treat this as an extended summer break. Nothing more, nothing less. What's great is that they've all been in school since they all left last month. They've had that, I guess, distraction, but that's the thing that they've been able to really pump a lot of their energies into. A lot of them have been under lockdown, so they haven't really been able to leave their houses. They haven't been able to do, I think probably 2 of the 8 girls on our team have been able to play tennis. The rest haven't even been able to play tennis yet. So I think the most important thing is, we'll finish up finals next week. And then it's about getting ready to get ready, right? And really, as things start loosening up globally and there's more opportunity for people to get out there and do some work, we've got plenty of time, but we might have more time than we realize. We just don't know that. But I think all the girls know that when they come back in the fall, there's an expectation of returning in a certain form. And all of them want it because they feel like there's a lot of unfinished business. We finished at number 2 in the country at the end of the season when it got called, and we have a lot of goals and have some things we want to take care of, and we were well on our way. And so I think the hunger is definitely there, but it's the pause button's being pushed right now, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We'll focus a little bit more on the next after they finish the semester of classes, get their grades final, and then we're going to focus things a little bit more closely on getting more prepared for the return.
You're a very driven coach. You have clear goals. You've talked about some of those. You recruit athletes who want to fit into that model as well, but you don't always get athletes who are necessarily as driven as you are. I'm curious how you motivate those athletes who are maybe more comfortable being less than their best, if that makes sense. For me, it's a frustration, right? I want them to be as driven as me, but sometimes I have to accept that my athletes don't have that drive like me, and I still have to motivate them and accept that that's who they are. How do you motivate your athletes?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Years ago, it was probably 10 years ago, I started to realize that if you're a coach, there's not a person on the planet that wants it more than you, period. It's just not possible because, it just doesn't work like that. And you do have student athletes along the way. I mean, I've had players who Monday through Thursday, I'm like, are you here? Where are you? But then on Friday, match time comes at 5 o'clock and they're on. And then Sunday they're on and they just are ready to compete and perform. I've had athletes who are unbelievable Monday through Thursday, and then they get a little iffy on the competition days and everything in between. How do you manage that? I think first of all is identifying it, because it's going to be really hard to change people's stripes. It's going to be hard to change them because they are who they are, but you have to continue to influence them to try to find a different way of looking at it. I think it's very easy to cruise and get by when you're really, really talented and you've got gifts. But then you always will have that thought in the back of your head: did I leave something out there in my career? Did I forget, to be did I neglect to be as successful as I could have been because I was just kind of going to cruise? And as long as by the time those types of players finish with the right mentality, we know we've done our job. And sometimes people take to it quickly and they have a wake up call and it's like, oh God, I got to get going. And it's like a switch. And then others fight it, and you're going to have those personalities that fight it. And a lot of times they end up being the better players, to be honest. The ones that push back, the stubborn ones that are like, those are sometimes your better players. And so, yeah, it's the motivation. We have to continue to push. We have to continue to push and not accept them dropping their levels and their expectations in the Monday through Thursdays. But I do very much appreciate the ones that can turn it on the competition day and the performance day. But those are few and far between, and those are the ones that require a little bit more attention and talking to, and they know it. At the end of the day, they know they're the ones that are, and they come to the realization, I got to be better, and I've got to be better for my team. I got to be better for this program. I got to be better for my coaches. And if I am, we're going to thrive, and that's on your shoulders. If you're the one who's dropping the ball, and I think there's a great responsibility in that they learn over time in the college setting for sure.
Yeah. A few months ago, I read a book by Helen Hull Jacobs. I don't know if you know that name. Probably not. She wrote a little book on tennis, and she won several majors back in the 1930s and 40s. And one of the things that she talked about is just the big differences between playing singles and doubles, and the responsibilities you have of I'm alone versus I've got to play with somebody and work together with them to be successful. A lot of your players play both singles and doubles. And so I'm curious how you pair people together in order to get the best performance from the team and not necessarily from the pair that are playing.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's tricky. It's very tricky. I think we've done a really good job over the last couple of years too, and finding those and actually having options for those connections on the doubles court. I mean, a lot of it is going to be, if you've got a big bomber that hits a hard flat ball, you want someone at net with nice finesse and hands. If you've got a big server, same thing. You want someone at hands. We had one doubles team this year of a couple of our seniors that, you never knew what they were going to bring. They're going to bring lobs. Are they going to be chip drop shots? Are they going to go lob over your head, come in? Are they going to go right at you? Are they going to go hard flat? And that was one of the reasons why they were so successful, is because they both could do so many different things that people never knew what was coming next, and we've been able to find good complementary partners for each other over the last couple of years. It's ended up actually in having a ton of doubles points won, which is critical in college tennis.
Yeah. And do you tend to group or pair people together based on their skill sets, not necessarily on their personalities?
No, personalities as well. I think if you've got two kids that are really close, for example, but their game styles don't match up, okay, we got to kind of tweak that. If you got two kids that maybe don't get along too great, but they're a perfect match, you got to consider that as well, and like I said, I feel like and the girls too, the girls have done a really good job of forgetting about whatever stuff that they have. And when it's time to compete, they're there. It doesn't matter who's next to them. They want to win. And that's the one thing that's in common in the doubles partnerships is they're not going to come off the court with a loss. They want to go win, and they're going to figure out whatever they got to do to get the job done. And very big girl tennis. I mean, just taking a great amount of responsibility for the job that needs to get done, and protecting that. And I think they've done a fantastic job.
Another question came in. Peroni, I'm sorry if I get your name wrong. Jen, has there been talk about the NCAA getting the kids an extra season of eligibility? And by the way, I love working with you, your staff, and your kids.
Hi, Prone. Yes, there has been a lot of talk, and we are still awaiting final word of everything right now. It looks good, but we're again pumping the brakes just a little bit right now until some of the financials are covered and considered, because obviously with these changes in the NCAA giving the seniors the year back, it's created a mountain of other issues that have to be looked at very, very specifically, and that's what's being done right now. But I could say I think we might see them again, but we'll save that final answer for another time.
When you talk about you as a coach, you're talking about always wanting to get better, always wanting to improve, win that national championship, and so on. What do you do in order to continually improve your skill set?
Right. Honestly, I think I have, again, been very fortunate with a lot of my colleagues and close friends that are in this profession, where we have a very very comfortable circle of people where we're able to pick each other's brains, and I think changing and learning to adapt with the generations of kids that are coming up and through is really important, because they're so different now than it was 10 years ago, which I hear myself saying that I'm not, that old, but it's very true. And
When you say changing, can you give an example of how you've had to change, or how they've changed and you adapted?
Before 15 years ago, you'd tell a kid, okay, jump, and they'd say how high, and then you tell me how high, and I'd say for 20 minutes, and they'll say yes, 30 minutes. Now it's like, well, coach, why do I need to jump? Can I jump this way, or should I maybe look at it this way? And so it's not pushback. They just want more information as to why on things now, which is great, because that's made us better coaches in our language and how we deliver messages or how we deliver points. And I think a younger coach can benefit from realizing it's not necessarily a kid that's pushing back at you. It's a kid that just wants information. And for me, that's what I love about tennis players is their tennis IQ is so smart. And they're generally very, very smart, intelligent people. And so for me, when they ask questions, I think 10 years ago, I probably would have been like,
Just do it.
yeah, shut up, do it. Like my coach said to me, and I was like, yes, ma'am. Those days are over, and that's not exactly how you get through anymore to these kids. And I appreciate that. I enjoy that, because it's, it continues to help us grow as coaches and get better as coaches to consider those things and how we have to continue to evolve as well.
Another question came through, and it's about this kind of extra season of eligibility and so on. And it's, if you do get an extra season, how does that affect future recruiting classes?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, if I had to say the one topic that myself and my peers and my coaching staff are talking about right now is that specific question, because we can't figure out exactly the immense impacts that it's going to have on future recruiting classes. I think, with transferring being so prevalent now, and obviously with seniors that can't get money to repeat their year, there's going to transfer there, and everything is getting turned upside down, to be honest. It's a very interesting scenario that we're all in right now, that I don't know if we can exactly identify the effects, but they're great. The financial effects, teams are going to be loaded, and then the next year or two, they're going to be average. I mean, and then you've got, is a freshman going to stay for the 4 more years? Is a sophomore? And those are all the questions that have to get answered in time. I think right now they're still trying to trudge through how to continue to thrive as an athletic department, as programs with these COVID times where there's just going to be so many cuts, and there's going to be, tremendous amounts of money lost. But I think that those things are going to answer themselves down the road, but there are absolutely going to be impacts. That was the one concerning thing about the seniors having a return is all the impact that it's going to have down the road. And I don't think we're even halfway there to figuring out all the impact that's going to exist.
Another question related to that is again from Patty, and says, how have you managed to find closure with your team on an unfinished season, and particularly a season which you've been doing so well?
Good question. Time. I think time has been a gift. We're two in the country. We're 14-3. Our ranked losses have been only 3 losses. We're to number 1, number 3, and number 4. I mean, just an incredible season that we were in the middle of, and really just enjoying the ride. There's no way to predict if that's ever going to, reproduce itself again down the road, because every year is different. Time has been the gift. I think, for the first couple of weeks or the first month, it was really difficult. Because you don't want to let it go. You're a part of something special. Everyone felt it. Everyone from the tennis offices through to equipment, through to everyone who had themselves and somehow invested in those girls. Your heart breaks for them because, they felt it. They were on this ride and on this trip that, I've been doing this 25 years, and very few seasons felt like this year did. And I'm sure for them as well. And so, then you're able to kind of have maybe a minute of pause to say, gosh, we got a lot bigger things going on in the world today that absolutely are priority. And it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. There's a lot of people in a lot worse situations. And so you got to get a little perspective on it. It doesn't mean it hurts any less. And you wonder what could have been. But you know what? I'll take what we did up until March 7th when we played our last match at Virginia and beat them 4-3, last match on, third set. And I'll take that and stick that in my back pocket and carry that with us into next season whenever we get to start off, and let that use as motivation kicking off next season whenever it gets going, and let's pick up where we left off. To be continued.
To be continued.
Yes.
When I think about tennis and some of the other sports and athletics, they don't necessarily get as much visibility as some of the maybe, well, we won't say other sports, but there are other sports out there that obviously carry a lot more weight, more TV time, more audience. Mm-hmm. What strategies have you found worked for you in order to build up your visibility and your attendance at events and just general understanding of what you're doing as a coach and as a team?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's come on the scene the last couple of years is TV matches, ACC Network for us. I know that's one thing we've utilized and had some live broadcasts of some matches at home we also played a few down at the USTA Tennis Center in Orlando. I know 2 years ago we played against Florida. They were the defending national champions, I think 2 in the country, and we were 27 at the time. And, we played simultaneously as the men on the backside playing Florida. So it was a pretty cool setup. Had over 2,000 people in the stands. And both matches were on. We didn't really have a lot of coverage. The guys were mostly on TV for that match. But, you have 2,000 people in the stands is a pretty solid showing for a tennis match. I think it was one of the largest ever in the history of college tennis. So having those opportunities to get on TV make a very big difference. I think the marketing is really important. I think that's one of the things that we continue to try to get better at, is the marketing aspect locally to get people in. And I think, one of the things I found this year is, when things started slowing down, or even in the middle of all the fun of the season, we had so many messages coming through from donors and boosters and the community and staff and everyone else just really getting behind the program, and as we were thriving at such a high level. And that makes a huge difference too. I think a winning program is going to obviously draw a lot more than not. I mean, that was one thing that we definitely saw. And that's our jobs, is to create that product and deliver a product out there during matches that people want to get behind. And I think that's one of the things we've done really, really well, is the girls, they're fun to watch. They're a very dynamic group. Last couple of years, they're really exciting. I mean, you can see people really getting behind the players, and but that's a work in progress. Always, every year, that's always a battle, is the marketing piece, where we can just keep getting more butts in the seats and get more fans behind those young ladies. And that's I think everyone across the country is fighting that same battle of, we want as many people there as we can get engaged.
Well, my last question is kind of looking holistically at your coaching career, and what advice would you have for coaches who are looking to either get into coaching early on in their career or move up the ladder? Based on what you've learned, what advice would you give them?
Good question. I would say Be okay failing. Be okay making a couple mistakes along the way because you're only going to get better with it. Identify who it is you want to be as a coach and stay true to that. It's hard because we're pulled in so many directions and the pressures are so great, whether they're from internal pressures or from the people around you or whatever it is. It just exists in competition. There's expectations. Always stay the course and stay true to who you are. And gosh, have fun with it. Have fun with it. Don't let the craziness make you crazy. Embrace it all. Because at the end of the day, when we have fun with these groups of girls and we have fun with what you're doing and you're challenging yourself, and even if it's a mistake, great, embrace it. You're going to fail. I mean, I could tell you stories for days of where I've dropped the ball and failed miserably, and but that's where you get better, and you can't be afraid to fail along the way. And have fun, and don't forget about the little things. The little things will pass you by really fast, so always pay attention to those.
Well, thanks very much for talking to us. If somebody wants to reach out with a specific question, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, my email's fine. It's jhyde@fsu.edu. And feel free anytime. Send an email, or I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, just a reminder, if you're interested, coming up next week, we have more guests starting on Monday with Donnie Jones, who's the head coach of men's basketball at Stetson University. He's really turned around that program, so I'm interested to find out what strategies he did to change the culture in a program. And then for the rest of the week, quite a lineup. Rocco Grimaldi is a professional hockey player for the Nashville Predators. He's on Tuesday. Jay Hernandez, assistant coach for the Charlotte Hornets, is on Wednesday. Cheryl Kirk is the national team leader for USA Racquetball, so I'll talk about her role when she travels with the team. And then we round out the week with Sergio Scarolio, who is the assistant coach of the Toronto Raptors and also the Spanish national team head coach. Jen, thanks so much for joining me. I do really appreciate it, and I hope that if people do have questions, they reach out and get in touch.
Absolutely, they can. Thank you so much for the time. It's always fun talking about our program.
Thank you.